It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the owner of the CrankMat Media, Ryan Hayes. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start a wrestling media outlet?
Yeah, well, so I kind of started messing around in it probably about around 2013. I was using the platform Blog Talk Radio to interview athletes, wrestlers. It was called a NC Wrestling Radio, and then it kind of progressed, and I started doing a lot more with it over time. And then I changed the name of the outlet a couple times because I went from wrestling to doing all sports, and then it was formerly Cast of Champions, to where I started kind of focusing a lot more on wrestling. And a buddy of mine, Brian Regan, who runs Dark Horse Wrestling Club down in Charlotte, he said, "Hey man, seems like you do a lot more wrestling. You should probably change it to a name that had something to do more with the lines of wrestling." So I changed the outlet to CrankMat Media about 3 months ago.
Can you talk about, of course, how you came up with the name of CrankMat Media?
Well, so CrankMat Wrestling Media, I really couldn't tell you. When I was doing MMA, I fought on an MMA promotion called Crank Cage. So I kind of went with the name and said CrankMat sound familiar. I was going to use Checkmat, but I didn't want to take that name because Checkmat is the name of a jiu-jitsu group or a jiu-jitsu gym out of the Charlotte area. So I just thought CrankMat sounded kind of catchy, and so I changed it to there, and kind of people like it because they just kind of caught on to it.
What services do you offer for the CrankMat Wrestling Media?
Well, so basically I just go out and so I coach wrestling, and that was kind of part of it. Like when I coach wrestling, I have the ability to be at some of the best wrestling tournaments in the country. So I just kind of started interviewing some of those top wrestlers. So it's crazy. I would interview a guy that's probably ranked in the country right after they probably beat my kid, which is crazy. But I just kind of tell them, hey, I got to wear like two hats today. I got to be a coach and I got to be a media guy. So, I want to interview you. So I interview athletes. I kind of share stuff that's going on in wrestling. Like, for instance, David Taylor won a gold medal in the Olympics. And so, you share other wrestler stuff. You just try to promote kids and try to help get their names out there, in hopes that it will pay off and maybe they can get an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten without that promotion or that push.
Can you talk about, of course, the process and what it's like to wear two hats, where you might be coaching against them and then you're like, oh, I need an interview from you for my media company?
Well, so I guess at first it was just kind of weird because a lot of people kind of didn't know what I was doing. So, I mean, like, for instance, back at the Northeast Regionals, I was helping coach a kid named Tyler Lillard. It was a USA wrestling. He just kind of needed a coach, and it was me and a guy named Todd Kendig, whose son was a pretty good wrestler back in the day. Well, so Tyler Lillard wrestled a kid named Lance Urbis, who is from M2 Wrestling Center or Training Center in State College, went to State College High School. So he beats Tyler Lillard in the finals. And I just kind of approached him and said, hey, man, by the way, I got like this wrestling media company I like to interview for. It's called CrankMat, which kind of threw him off because he didn't realize, well, like, is this a joke, or what is it that this guy's trying to do? And then he kind of looks it up and he sees what I'm doing. So then he was kind of more than happy to do the interview. So yeah, it's not anything really hard to do. It's just at first it was kind of weird, but then at the end of the day, like people now know who I am and know that I am a coach and I am also a media guy as well.
What businesses do you have under your empire of the CrankMat media?
I mean, that's really it. I mean, it's kind of, as far as CrankMat in and of itself, it is kind of in its infancy. So, I just now purchased a URL for the start up a website. It's going to be crankmat.com. I already have an email address that I made, so I can start getting emails there. So, I mean, I'm going to start branching out, kind of doing articles, doing a lot more write-ups, just doing what I can because, wrestling's a sport that I've been involved in since 1997. And, it's been a huge part of my life. So, I want to do a lot more branching out up under the CrankMat, but I'm just not, I'm not that I'm not ready yet, but it's kind of trying to fill out where to go from there.
Can you talk about, of course, your podcast that you came out with?
Yeah. So, the podcasting part, normally, like, everybody, the people that I interview, some of them are good wrestlers and some of them are not the best wrestlers. And I think at the end of the day that most people think that, in order to get on a podcast, I got to be a good wrestler. I'll interview any wrestler that has a story, a background, or just something that they want to talk about. And through that, you get a chance to know a lot of good wrestlers on the youth, middle school, high school circuit, college circuit. So, when you run into that wrestler that you interviewed at a tournament, you kind of got a start point. You kind of, you're able to strike up a conversation with them. So, yeah, the podcasting part, I don't really, it's not like, I do them every other Monday. I hadn't done a podcast in a month. I might be at a tournament, see a kid wrestle. Maybe I might think, okay, that's a good guy to have on a podcast, and then I'll approach him, and then that's going to be on a podcast. I mean, but yeah, that's where the podcasting parts come in at. I've had on my podcast some of the top wrestlers in the country on the world scene, national scene, high school scene, such as Dayton Fix, Oklahoma State, Yanni Diakamahala as a Cornell Spencer Lee of Iowa. I've had top high school wrestlers like Joseph Seeley from High Point, North Carolina, Levi Haynes from Pennsylvania. I've had just a number of solid wrestlers on my podcast.
Can you talk about, of course, what it was like to interview the Decatur Boys?
Yeah, so Christian and Timothy Decatur. So those kids they're from like eastern North Carolina, kind of down in the Goldsboro area, I think. So those guys, I've known them since they were like really, really young. They kind of busted on to the youth scene, and I kind of followed them. And listen, they're just good kids. Both of them, Timothy and Christian. They were all multiple-time state champions. Timothy went on to wrestle, I want to say a year at Carolina. Now he's he entered the transfer portal a couple months ago. Him and his brother Christian, who was at UNC Pembroke, and then they all decided to go wrestle down in Newberry together as a brother kind of family couple. And yeah, so it was great interviewing them. You gotta like those kids. Because I live on the western side of North Carolina, so to speak, I never ran into them as much. But it's just something about those two kids that you like. I don't know what it is. They're just great kids. I can't say enough good things about them. I mean, they're just good kids. I've never seen any of them upset, throw temper tantrums at tournaments because they lost. I mean, they're just true ambassadors of the sport, and really, really help promote North Carolina on a high level.
Of course, with them coming on your show to declare they were going to transfer to Newberry, were they the only ones that have come on your show to announce they're committing somewhere or signing somewhere else, or have you had others come on your show to announce signing?
Yeah. So funny you asked that. That was actually by a joke. When they put out that they were entering a transfer portal, I remember sending them a private message on one of my social media platforms, and I said, "You guys should announce where you're going on my my CrankMat Instagram." LOL. Like, it was truly a joke. Like, I was like I wasn't expecting for him to say yes or no, but just to probably kind of like give a laugh back, like, haha. Well, it just so happened that Christian was like, "Yeah, we can do that." And I was like, "Oh, really? Well, bet. Yeah, let's do it." So that's how that came about. And then most recently, I had a kid, 4-time North Carolina state champion, Landon Four, who was let go, or he was able to get out of his NLI, and I asked him, "Hey, can you make your commitment on my on CrankMat?" And he said sure. So then Landon Four was on here most recently and committed to Monterey College up there in the Asheville area of North Carolina.
How was it having those 3 players commit on your show?
Well, so it was good, to kind of get the scoop, being able to say that, hey, it was my show that they made that announcement, because people don't understand. It's a very, very, very it's a very, very secret thing. You don't want anybody to know. It's not like it's on some like top secret government type stuff, but I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's the process that you've been through to kind of get to that point. The grind of going to visit multiple colleges and campuses, meeting coaches and other wrestlers from other colleges, to be able to put it all together and figure out what's the best place for you to be at when it comes to your wrestling, not only wrestling, but academically, what's going to give you the best education. So for them to make that make that choice on my show, it's important to me. It's and I feel good, because it's like they could have done that. They could have just announced it on their social media or went to another media platform to do it. But they chose me when I asked, and I appreciate it. I mean, and then also, it's that one of the biggest things is having to call the coaches before they announce and say, "Hey, I didn't choose your school." So, I mean, it's a lot that goes into that, and then the fact that they picked my outlet to do it on, it makes me feel, it makes me feel great about it, that I'm doing enough out there to where they feel like that my show is important enough for them to make that choice, that all important choice that they make.
That's very nice. What are some of your future plans with CrankMat Media?
Yeah, so even this weekend I got to be at a tournament in Tennessee. I'll be at some of the top local and regional wrestling tournaments. You got Ultimate Club Duels coming up in Pennsylvania. You have Super 32 coming up in Greensboro, North Carolina. You got the Grappler in Myrtle Beach. You got the Dirty Dons in Myrtle Beach. There's just a bunch of tournaments coming up that I would like to kind of cover. And I got to probably do a podcast during the next couple of weeks. I really hadn't chose anybody or kind of reached out, but I'll probably figure out this weekend. Like I said, I'm going to a tournament, so I may see a good a good podcast prospect there. So that's really the plans, getting the website up, kind of just getting a lot more out there. I've been asked a couple of times to venture into doing some state rankings for North Carolina, kind of do some national rankings. The thing with rankings is that you're never going to make everybody happy. I try not to do them, but I've been asked to do them, and so I may venture into doing a ranking. So that's kind of the future of it right now, and of course things may or may not change.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before starting a media company dealing with wrestling?
Something that I've learned now that I didn't know. Well, kind of. So one of the things I did that was this past state tournament for North Carolina. I made predictions, right? So I put out who I thought would win state titles in the various weight classes in the 4A division. And what I didn't was the amount of emails that I would get from parents and relatives and friends of the athletes or wrestlers who I did not pick to win state titles. And, they're like, why didn't you pick my kid? Or why didn't you pick my friend? Why didn't you pick my nephew? Why didn't you pick my grandson? I didn't know that it was going to be like that, which is why I'm hesitant to kind of do rankings, so to speak. So just that kind of stuff, I guess, kind of knowing that people are going to scrutinize what you publish or what you say.
What advice would you give somebody looking to start their own sports media company?
If you love it, like mine's a hobby, right? So I probably have invested more money into it than I've ever than I've gotten out of it, because it's not really about money to me. It's about promoting kids. So if you're passionate about it, start it up. First thing is think about what's free: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. All that's free. All that's free. And so, start your platforms on there and whatever it is, and just start going to events. Like, sometimes we have people that just kind of do podcasts. They do podcasts and media based off results that they see, but to actually go to the events, meet the wrestlers, or meet whatever is sport you're doing, whether it be football, basketball, badminton, racing, whatever it is, you just be passionate about it when you start it up, and just go in there. And be happy about what you do.
What advice would you give sports business owners looking to start their own sports empire like you did?
Well, I don't want to say that mine's far from an empire. Like an empire, a sports empire to me would be like owning like a sports franchise team, like Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks and Mark Cuban. That's a sports empire. Jerry Jones, I think that's the guy's name. Cowboys, that's a sports empire. Steinbrenner Yankees. I don't really want to call it an empire. I just like doing what I do, and just being around the sport is giving so much back to me.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, so Twitter at CrankMat, Instagram at CrankMat, on Facebook it's CrankMat Wrestling Media. It's the same on YouTube, CrankMat Wrestling Media. And here in the next couple months, you can go to www.crankmat.com, and you'll also start probably seeing write-ups and stuff on there.
Thank you again, Ryan, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with CrankMat Media Wrestling.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Ryan, for your interview, and best of luck with CrankMat.
Thank you. You as well.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.